I watched a video this morning, as I've watched a number of times, of folk singing, and it's excellent and it's wonderful that people are prepared to put the effort into preparing these songs, but there were no words. And I thought perhaps it might be worth just looking at how easy it is to add words to videos such as we've watched. So I'm going to show you how I would do that. Obviously you need to decide whether you feel it's something you can do or not, and certainly shouldn't feel pressured into feeling obliged to do it, but it may well be something that you feel enhances what you do with very little extra effort. There are a number of ways of doing it, so I will create several videos which will show you different options that I'm aware of where you can add these words. It doesn't have to be perfect. It enables worship in particular, because we can all share, we can sing along even if you can't hear us. Maybe even better, because you can't hear us, but that's another story. So here we go. So here we are in the Movavi editor, part of their Total Video suite. So if you've bought the editor along with the screen recorder, then this will be available to you as well. It operates in much the same way as iMovie does on the Apple. So there are quite a lot of similarities. I've actually created this video in iMovie and in the Microsoft's video editor, both free. And I do have to say that the fact that this is a paid for product, even though not hugely expensive, does show there are some real benefits in using Movavi. But let's begin, and the first thing I want to do is pull in the file that I'm working with, which is this song by Nadège and Daniel, which I've taken from the whole service. I've just taken the song because obviously I don't want to be moving a huge file around. So, and I'm imagining that you've recorded a song, so it will just be the song. Now you want to add subtitles, and that's what we're going to do. So before I start, I really want a bit more space to work with, so I'm going to have to kind of increase the size of this. And the way you do that is this little thing down the bottom where you can, it says scale. So you can actually move this and make it bigger. So we get a fair amount of space. Maybe we don't need quite that much. It's so that you can see that the sound, the bits of sound are separate. Now, in order to add the words, I need to find out where the words start and finish. I'm going to be, I've got the words in a Word document, which you can't see because it's in a different application. But I can copy those and paste them in where I add them in the video. I'm going to do them line by line, so we present a line at a time. So it means I need to find where the song is sung, where those lines start. Now, I'll move the position here. It begins with Daniel. It begins first of all with Daniel saying hello to everyone, and then in fact Nadège introduces a little bit. Daniel does a little bit of start, and then he nods. There we go. He nods to Nadège, who then picks up the music. Oh dear, I've gone right off the screen there. Who then picks up the music. Where it starts. So let's move it along a little bit. So watch for that nod again. There we go, there's the nod. And she will start singing, you can see. So I'll bring it back a bit, I listen, and I will stop it at just the point where she's about to sing. There. Now, I'm not going to try and create the text first of all. I'm going to mark each part where each line starts, and obviously the previous line finishes. So in order to do that for Movavi, it's Control and M. So Control and M, and it will mark it. You can see this little yellow marker. There's also room for text. It would seem that you can actually describe each marker. We don't need to do that, but that's useful for more complex editing. We'll play on, and then we'll do the same thing at the beginning of the next line or at the end of the first line. So I'm going to stop there a little bit before the end of the line, because it's good to have the words for the next line early, so you're not kind of having to catch up each time the next line starts. So Control and M, we mark it again. Mark again. And again. And that's the end of the first 4 lines, and then in fact the first line is repeated. Now I'm not going to do the rest. I've already created one I did earlier, but you would carry on and do this for every line in the song. So we've marked them, and you can imagine there's some additional marks for the rest of the lines. Let's go back now, and we'll go to the first line, and this time, so we'll come back here somewhere. I'm now ready to put the text in, so I'm going to click on this TT, which is for text. Oh well, let's get rid of that. That's one I created earlier as well. We'll come back to that. So first of all, we'll look at the titles, and I want to find one that's suitable for subtitles. Doesn't really link them in the way that I wanted. I think it might just be intro video. No, it wasn't intro videos I looked at. Basic. It's going to be basic. So let's have a look and see if I can find some subtitles here. There's some simple text, title and subtitle, but they're not subtitle. Here's the subtitle with background. That's the one I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, and I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to put it on the marker. And the marker, it actually magnetizes it clicks to the marker. And then in fact I'll make it the length between the first marker and the next. So this is going to be my first line, so I'll copy the first line. I'll copy the first line, and I'll put it in the text here. So here, and it's 3 clicks does it in fact. And I'll put, now in order to make sure it's centered, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this to the edge of the screen here. And I'm going to copy this to the edge of the screen there. Now that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to center those words, and then I want to remove that background. Having a background is quite useful if the colors are very varied, if it's very dark in one part, very light in another, because then you know, if you use white it gets lost in the light part, if you use black it gets lost in the dark part. But it actually works okay here, so I'm going to get rid of that background, and I think you can see it quite well. So that's what I want. That's how it's going to look. Now, one of the pluses of Movavi is that you can actually save your varied, your slightly modified text. And of course you might want to change the font, you might want to make the words bigger or smaller. You might want to change the color of the text. All of these are options that are available. And then in fact we go to this new preset which gives me the ability to rename it and save it. So I'm going to call it Subtitles Centered No Background. Okay. So we'll save that. And it's got this section for my titles. So I've got that permanently. It will save that now. Okay, so I can take this one that we've created and I can put it down in the next area ready for the second line. Now I did discover that there are things you have to go back and do, and if you try and do it each one at a time, it sort of wastes time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these down and put them in position for each of the lines. So get this ready. This is kind of more productive doing it this way. Let's move it on a little bit. I've only got these 5 lines, the first verse as it were, and then the beginning of the repeat, but you would do this for all of them. So there they are. And then I go back to that first one and I copy the second line and I put the words in. Click to get the edit up and then triple click to get all the words and put it in. Now I'm not going to tidy that up yet. I'll come back and tidy it up. So third line, copy the third line, and for some reason when you change the text you lose the centered text. Now that's too big, so we're going to have to come back and think about that. And then the fourth line, is here, and there we go. And I don't need to do anything with the fifth line because it's a repeat of the beginning. And in fact that's centered as well. So this one we now want to center, so if I go back to text I simply click on center, click on center, click on center, and we're done. Well, except we're not, because that is too big. So I thought 60 would be fine. I thought in fact 80 would be fine, but clearly not. So 60 is too big, so we need to reduce it a bit. 50 there. Do we leave the others at 60? It's a bit strange changing the size, but probably okay. And there we have it. That's all we need to do. If I start playing that now from just before, you'll see what it looks like. You'll notice that I've got some of the words wrong. I've taken this off the internet, and obviously different versions are very slightly different. I would have liked a little bit more transition between each of these lines, some kind of fade in and fade out or something. I looked, I couldn't find how to do that. There may well be methods of doing it, but it wasn't obvious. So there it is. I mean, obviously we would want to do the whole song and not just 5 lines, but it's the same process. And it's done. All you now need to do is click on export, which will export your whole work that you've done. You give it a new name, you find a location, and you click on start, and it will start the export, and it will give you a little noise to tell you when it's done. I'm not going to save it because I've already saved the one I created earlier. But that's it. That's the method. So if you have paid for the Movavi editor, then certainly use it, and it gives you some real benefit. You do have fancy text and fancy options which you can explore. You can try additional things. You have artistic texts that you can play with. But in terms of the song, you don't want to distract from the song, so something very simple is ideal. So, I wish you well. I hope you get some benefit out of this. And do try and do this. Do spend some time on this, because if you've gone to the effort of making a video of your music and your songs, this just adds that little bit of extra benefit. Of course, one other benefit for this is if you wanted to if you had something in French, for example, like a sermon or a presentation, and you wanted to put an English translation, make an English translation available, you can make the English as subtitles, and of course vice versa. So I wish you well, and bonne chance.
Bonjour Loudun. Bonjour mes frères et mes sœurs de toi. Bonjour à tous.
Et bonjour Daniel.
Bonjour Nadège.
Nous allons introduire ce culte en chantant Bénissez le Seigneur, parce que vraiment il mérite d'être béni notre Seigneur.